But when you hear her speak, you will soon learn that she is wise beyond her years. I would like to now introduce Joanna Flynn to present to you why she is proud to be an American.
Hello.
Hello.
Flying things everywhere. As Ms. Yesner said, I am 16 years old and I wrote this speech for a competition. And as we're all here to honor those that we've lost, friends and family, I think it's also important that we honor what they died fighting for. So I present to you my speech, Proud to be an American. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. As the familiar words filter through the intercom, you hear sighs and shuffling as students stand to their feet. All except one. In Chicago, a 15-year-old sophomore took a stand by refusing to stand. Exercising his right to freedom of speech, he remained in his seat while his classmates rose and pledged to the American flag. His reason? According to a Chicago newspaper, the Daily Beast, America sucks. This is just one example in the rising tide of students, athletes, workers, and even senators refusing to stand and pledge allegiance to the United States flag. Why is this? I believe that we have forgotten who we are as a nation. I believe that the media has so smothered us in a bad report that we've forgotten that America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. I believe that much like an insecure teenager, America is in the midst of a nationwide identity crisis because her people either haven't been taught the value of freedom, have forgotten the value of freedom, or mistakenly believe that they are entitled to this freedom. This speech is not about the Pledge of Allegiance. This speech is about why we should be proud to be Americans. Because to be an American is to stand for freedom. Today, we're going to explore 1, the true value of freedom. 2, why freedom is worth fighting for. And 3, that it is up to us to pass freedom on. So first, what is freedom and why is it so valuable? The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines freedom as the absence of constraint in choice or action, liberation from the power of another. Everyone values different aspects of freedom. For one, it could be the ability to speak their mind, to express their agreement or disagreement with our government. Another could value the ability to work for themselves and build their own dreams. Personally, I value that here in the United States of America, I have the freedom to worship my God. In reality, freedom is all of these things. Pulitzer Prize-winning author David Hackett Fisher wrote in his book Liberty and Freedom, what made America free was not any single vision of liberty and freedom, but the interplay of many visions. Together, these many ideas made America more free than any one American ever was or wished to be. This is what makes America so wonderful. Freedom means something different to each individual, and it always has. Since day one, July 4th, 1776, people have drastically disagreed on religion, on politics, even on the best way to grow crops. But they all signed their name under one document, the Declaration of Independence, because they realized that freedom itself was more important than any difference in opinion. Because of this freedom, sure, we can choose to sit down during the Pledge of Allegiance. But does this 15-year-old in Chicago realize that if he were to stand for what he believed in China, he could be taken to a prison and never seen again? In Iran, if he were to speak an opinion contrary to the supreme leader, he could be killed where he stood. If he were to refuse allegiance in North Korea, no one would ever know he existed. President Ronald Reagan said in his farewell address that ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government. And with 3 little words: we, the people. We, the people, are not under constraint. We get to choose our actions. We have been liberated from being under the power of another. We are free. That brings us to our second point. Freedom is worth fighting for. It is worth defending. Let's go back to why the colonists wanted independence from Great Britain. Many of the men and women who had settled in the colonies had already left Britain, or been kicked out, because of their strong religious or political views. When their freedom in the colonies was challenged by unfair British taxation, they spoke up, but soon realized that they had no voice. This freedom was so valuable that the 56 signers of the Declaration pledged to each other their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. 9 of those men gave their lives to the cause of independence. 17 lost every penny they had and every piece of property they owned. And yet, not one of them wavered in their pledge. William Floyd from New York was able to escape a British invasion, but left behind his home and income. When he returned, penniless, 7 years later, the home he once knew had been burned to the ground. John Hart from New Jersey rushed home from signing the Declaration to say goodbye to his dying wife. He was forced to flee by the British. He never saw his wife or 13 children again and died 2 years later. As Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death." Many were given death that day so that you and I may have liberty. Freedom is not free. We've fought for it. Many of our friends, many of our family have fought to their dying breath. And if our freedom is challenged again, we will fight again. As Samuel Adams wrote in his Federalist Papers, the liberties of our country and the freedom of our civil constitution are worth defending against all hazards. And it is our duty to defend them against all attacks. Our third and final point: it is up to us. In 1958, President John F. Kennedy urged, "Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix blame for the past, but let us accept our own responsibility for the future." I remember sitting in history class and listening to my teacher drone on about how teens in America have grown apathetic, how we don't understand or appreciate the value of freedom. I didn't want to be like that, but I didn't know how to be anything else. To me, freedom was normal. No one had ever told me that halfway around the world, there was a girl my age sitting in a sweatshop. I simply didn't know. I'd like to think that our friend in Chicago simply doesn't know. All he hears about, all he knows are the flaws in America, and there are plenty of them. But he, like so many others, is completely unaware of how our country works, how we've gotten where we are, and what makes us so different. As the people of the United States, we need to recognize the value of freedom, as well as our responsibility to vote, to protect our rights and hand them on to the next generation. We need to instill in our children a love for our country, a respect for our leaders, and an understanding of the sacrifice of our military. We need to teach them how our country works, because one day, they'll be running it. President Ronald Reagan once told us that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. We are the next generation. We hold the fate of freedom in our hands. No matter what aspect of freedom we value most, this absence of constraint, this liberty, is absolutely worth fighting for. It is an honor to live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. It is an honor to pledge allegiance to our flag as proud Americans. Thank you to the men and women who have fought for, protected, and died and handed on freedom to the next generation so that America could continue to be one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Was that good or what?